Champasak, the southern region with its traditional villages, islands, waterfalls and temples. We flew from Luang Prabang to Paksay in the southern region Champasak. From Paksay we took a boat and travelled south to Don Daeng, then transferred to a coach and visited the Phonsiad village before travelling on to our hotel on Don Kong. Next day, we explored the 4,000 island region by boat. Our boat took us to Don Det, and we travelled on to Don Kong, from which we took a dolphin safari boat. We returned to Don Det and went by boat and road to Kong Phafang waterfall, before returning to our hotel on Don Kong. Next day, we travelled north again, visiting the temples Wat Umung and Wat Phu, before going on to our next hotel by the waterfall Tad Itu. On our final day, we took a walk on the Bolivan Plateau, ending at the 120 metre drop Tad Phane waterfall with its spectacular zip wire. We returned to our hotel via a local coffee outlet. We catch the early morning flight from Luang Prabang, and an hour and a half later we're in Paksay. We take a short bus ride to the river, walk to our boat, and are soon underway. The city slips by as we head south, and the group relaxes and watches the world drift by. The river becomes quite wide in places as it divides into several channels flowing around small islands. The water's choppy here. An interesting car ferry. Our plan was to visit a traditional village on the island Don Daeng. As we approach, the boatman decides it's too risky to land, and so we abandon the visit and go directly to Muang. We board the bus and about an hour later arrive at another village, Phonsiad. This agricultural community largely has traditional houses. Elevated living quarters are naturally cooled by convection, and also provide shaded working areas beneath. Basket weaving is a speciality here.
Stick receiver, and then they have a pot filled with water.
People and their animals mix together. Children enjoy their pictures being taken. Drying some yams. Workers returning with sugarcane. We leave the village and an hour later are at our hotel on Don Kong, the riverside dining area where we took our meal that evening. Early next morning, as we watched sunrise, the monks came around for their morning alms collection. After breakfast, we boarded our boats next to the hotel and headed south towards the Cambodian border. The bridge to Don Kong Island. We are heading for the 4,000 island region, where the Mekong splits into a maze of channels. Temples and villages lie along the riverbanks, and the wider river channel is filled with a multitude of small, tree-covered islands. We continue south to the island of Don Det. Another small ferry crosses our path. The French pier on Don Det. The large structure is remains of a loading pier for the Don Det-Don Kong Portage Railway. The area around the pier has a mixture of traditional and tourist activities. We take this truck south along the route of the former narrow gauge railway. It passes over the French bridge to Don Kong and continues to the south of that island. Remains of the old locomotives. Our destination, the place for the dolphin boat trips. The river here, downstream of the falls and rapids, is much lower than at Don Det. We board the tour boats and head slowly south towards the Cambodian side of the river, looking for the Irrawaddy river dolphins. There are only a handful of these dolphins left on the Mekong, and sighting them is not easy. This is the picture from the trip poster. We spent some time drifting along and did manage to get a number of fleeting glimpses of the dolphins. They were difficult to video, but we did manage to capture a few of the sightings.
Oh, coming towards us. Yes, there.
After dolphin watching, we took lunch by the French bridge. And then travelled on to the French pier on Don Ket. We reboarded our boat and travelled on to a town on the riverbank, from where we went to the Pha Pheng waterfall. These, together with the Cone Falls at the opposite side of Don Kong, provide a 10-kilometre wide, 20-metre high barrier to navigation up the Mekong, and why the Portage Railway was built. We walked along to see the falls from above. Before returning to our hotel for the evening. In the morning, we were again welcomed by a lovely sunrise over the Mekong. After breakfast, we packed our bags and set off northwards along the river. Less than 2 hours later, we were walking through the woods to our first temple site of the day.
So this is called Umong Temple. Umong? What Umong? Oh, Umong.
Temple ruins. Artifacts have been moved to the museum at Wat Phu. This Hindu temple was built by the Khmer people in the 7th century. And the temple, dedicated to Shiva's wife, predates Wat Phu. Its name, Umong, derives from the river boat pier. We travel up to Paxi and then south again along the other side of the river. We dine beside the river before going on to Wat Phu. We approach from the east along the causeway. This Khmer Hindu temple complex dates from the 11th century. At the north, and south palaces. Decorations are in the early Khmer style. We enter the North Palace and find no access to the courtyard. A finely decorated lintel. The courtyard. The causeway beyond the palace rises to the next terrace. Looking back, and beyond this terrace are steps leading to the sanctuary. Looking back again. The library and sanctuary are in a poor state of repair, but still exhibit intricate Hindu carvings. After the fall of the Khmer Empire to the Laos in the 13th century, the temple was converted to Buddhist use, and inside the sanctuary are Buddha images. The rear of the sanctuary is in ruins. Below the rock face, a source of holy water. I wonder what these rock piles signify. There are interesting relief carvings on rocks around the sanctuary. An elephant.
Of course, these little elephants were kind of helpful.
Snakes. A crocodile. The reservoir, or barre, is the only one of 5 still containing water. Originally, there were others beside the causeway. Time to leave. We head back to our coach and a couple of hours later arrive at our hotel. This is our room. In the morning, we set off for a walk on the Bolivan Plateau, the head of the Tad Etu waterfall. We cross the bridge and head uphill through the trees. Soon we meet tea and coffee plantations. Coffee drying. A village with its characteristic raised wooden houses. More coffee drying. The Bolivan Plateau is the major coffee production area in Laos. Another worker harvesting coffee. The plantations give way to forest. A brief water stop and we're underway again. Open limestone formations with views over the plateau. This area was heavily bombed in the Vietnam War, and like in the north, there remains extensive unexploded ordnance. The bridge over the river is a bit rickety in places, and we cross with trepidation. No such fear shown by a local on his motorbike. We follow this dirt road south and soon reach the Tad Fein waterfall.
Back there, you have to buy the tickets.
This double waterfall at 120 metres is the highest in Laos. Its base is out of sight. One way to see the base is to cross the gorge on a zip wire. Linda was the only one of us brave enough to try. After brief instructions, she goes to the platform and clips on.
Get in there, just push me out of the way.
Her guide leads the way, and she follows. Getting a full view of the gorge
Okay, you can stop now.
before safely reaching the platform at the other side. A short walk and she's off again along the second leg. The third leg is above the fall,
And then there's a
and the final one returns a little way down the gorge from the start point. She clearly enjoyed it.
How was that, Linda?
Brilliant. I was so pleased I did it.
Well done.
4 decent sized
Inspired by this, Lorna sent her husband, poor Paul, out to show that anything a New Zealand woman can do, an Englishman can do too. The first leg,
there he is. There he is.
the second,
Slower.
the third, and the final one.
Wave!
No wave from Paul though. After that, we took a snack overlooking the falls before returning to our hotel. To round off the day, we walked to the Tad Etu Fall beside our hotel and took a refreshing late afternoon swim.